We'll take just a few minutes here and talk about getting ripped off at auto repair shops. I'll start at the beginning. Some of the simple stuff. Let's say you go to an oil change place, get an oil change done. Of course, they come walking out with their little clipboard. You know, they want to flush the transmission, they want to flush the power steering fluid. They're going to show you a little test strip that says your brake fluid needs to be replaced and all that kind of shit. The best thing to do if you don't have a car that's over 120,000 miles, that's when most service interval stuff ends. It usually goes from 0 to 120 as far as the factory service interval, and then it starts over. So if you're inside that range, the best thing for you to do is look in your owner's manual. Most of the time, it's all in the owner's manual or in the service booklet that came with the car. It should be in the glove box. Watch that, you know, and only buy if a place recommends something if you find it in there for where your car is at as far as the factory recommended service for your mileage. Okay, you know, they're there to do services and they're there to sell things, and that's what they're going to do to you. Unfortunately, you know, most people don't know the difference, and a lot of stuff gets wasted. A lot of stuff gets charged for and never gets done. You know, if they come in there and they say they want to flush your brake fluid, and you know, reality of it is your brake fluid's perfectly clean, you're never going to know the difference. So the best thing to do is if you go in for an oil change, anything they recommend, tell them to note it, pay for the oil change, go about your business, maybe go to another place and get a second opinion on the things that the first place recommended. When you do that, if you choose to do that, do not share the information in detail with the place you're getting a second opinion on. Simply go there and tell them that some things were recommended at the oil change place and you want to get a second opinion. Don't tell them what was recommended. See what they recommend, compare notes. If any of the two things do match up and line up, then consider having it done if it's reasonable. Always watch your back. You know, never just jump in and buy with both feet. Ladies, unfortunately, they prey on you. You know, they see you coming. Girls just don't know the difference, and it's a shame. It's really too bad. So that covers pretty much the small end of things. Get a second opinion. Don't buy it right then. You know, if they want to say it's a safety issue and put you up against the ropes and start swinging at you and all that kind of shit, keep in mind that it's an oil change place. You know, if it's an oil change place, the only reason they're stopping with the flushes and the stuff like that is that they don't do brakes and batteries and other things, or they'd be trying to sell you that crap too. Speaking of flushes, everyone out there, do not ever have an automatic transmission flushed. Please. If it's a drain and refill because it's not a pan serviceable filter type transmission, it's a very simple process. You drain it, you replace the same amount that came out with the correct fluid to go back in. It's kind of like doing an oil change. Yeah, it doesn't change 100% of it, but trust me, this is 20 years of experience speaking. Do not ever under any circumstance have an automatic transmission flushed, no matter how hard they try to convince you that it's the right thing to do. Other repairs, larger repairs. Second opinion. Second opinion is going to be my favorite thing to say concerning getting ripped off at auto repair shops. If you feel comfortable and you feel confident, if you've got a place you've been going to that you don't have any complaints with, then don't worry about the second opinion, unless something warrants it. You know, they get a new manager, they get a new service writer, all of a sudden you're getting, you know, recommendations that you never got at this place before, something like that, then maybe, you know, put your guard up a little bit. Just pull back just a little bit and don't just let them write checks for you. Second opinion. I can't say it enough. Second opinion, second opinion, second opinion. There are certain situations where you're better off at the dealer, believe it or not. The dealer is obviously going to be the most expensive place to have your car worked on. However, there are advantages and disadvantages. We'll touch on that and we'll wrap this clip up. One advantage to going to the dealer, if you have an intermittent problem or you have a newer car. If you have a newer car, it's not more than 5 years old, the independent shops and the tire centers and, you know, most of your various auto repair facilities, those guys don't know the patterns of those newer cars yet. Cars haven't been around long enough to know the quirks and learn the patterns of what those cars are. The guys at the dealerships are the first one to know that on the newer vehicles because that's primarily what they are working on. So as far as pinpointing goofball issues, You know, if it's something that's intermittent, if it only does it sometimes, something like that, then you may be better off at the dealership. Another good thing about the dealership is the dealership they have factory hotlines. You know, they've got tech support that's a phone call away, only for their authorized dealership service departments. So to put that in plain English, if you're at a Ford dealership getting your late model Ford worked on and the mechanic or the technician runs into something that he's not real sure about, he walks over, he picks up the phone, and he calls the tech line. And he calls the factory. He's talking to guys that engineered that car, guys that built that car, guys that have been taking apart the defective parts so far that have gone back on that car and trying to figure out what caused it and what the fix is. So that's not a phone call that other shops can make. So there's two good things about going to the dealership. Now, I'm only going to mention one extremely negative point about the dealership, and I want you to keep this in mind. As a professional mechanic, normally you start your career at a dealership. So if you go to a dealership and the service department has, say, let's say 10 technicians, pretty much 7 or 8 of those guys are going to have 5 years or less experience. They're rookies. They're wet behind the ears. So you have guys working on your car that don't have a lot of experience working on cars. You're going to have rookie mistakes, even though they have the information and the hotlines and access to the software and the new computers specifically for that car. First shot at the technical service bulletins, you've still got a rookie working on your car. So that's one of the bad things. If you happen to get lucky and you do get the seasoned tech, because the other 2 or 3 out of those 10 are usually old school, you know, seasoned guys that have been around for 20 years or longer, then you're probably in pretty decent hands. But you got to keep in mind, well, why is this guy still working at the dealership after 20 years? You know, so as far as the technicians go, that's the Achilles heel, in my opinion, of going to the dealership. But second opinion, always get a second opinion. Don't just buy up front unless you're comfortable. If you're comfortable with the shop, you're comfortable with what they recommend, you've never had problems with their work, you've never had problems with the parts they install on your vehicle, then stick with it. Don't change a good thing. Don't change something that works. Don't alter something that works because you saw something on the news about auto repair ripoffs or something like that. You know, there are honest shops out there. There are some. And there's a lot of crooked ones too. So be careful, you know, keep these things in mind. Intermittent problems are tough. This is one more thing I'm going to hit on here. I'm going to squeeze this in before we wrap this particular video up, because intermittent problems are hard. If your car only does it sometimes, please keep in mind that if you take it to the shop and you drop it off, if it won't do it while it's there, if they can't duplicate the symptom, and there are no diagnostic trouble codes, there's no evidence, there's no trail of clues as to what you've been experiencing, the shop is going to have to experience it. So when you start to notice your car doing something goofy, ahead of time look for a pattern of when does it do it? Is it a noise that only does it when I turn right? Is it a noise? Okay, so if that's the case, is it when I turn right at less than 15 miles an hour? Is it when I turn right at more than 15 miles an hour? Try to pinpoint, try to narrow down these patterns of these symptoms, you know. If it's a situation where sometimes the car doesn't start, sometimes it gives you a hard time firing up. Is it when it's cold? Is it when it's hot? Is it when it's what technicians call a hot soak, which is you go into a store, car's hot when you shut it off, you come out, it's only been about 30 minutes, and the car wants to give you a hard time starting. That's what we refer to as a hot soak. If you start it up after you shut it off 3 minutes later and it's fine, and you start it up the next morning and it's fine, you know, if you've pinpointed that pattern before you take your car in with an intermittent problem, it will help you save money and diagnostic time drastically, more than likely, as long as you're dealing with a competent shop. So don't buy everything the oil change place is selling you. Stay away from the dealer if you can, unless you have a new car or with some weirdo issue, and try to pinpoint intermittent problems. Try to look for patterns before you take the car in to save yourself some money, and it'll save the technician some headache, because he doesn't have to play with your car all day long to try to duplicate the symptom if you can give him enough information. You know, if you come in and you tell him and you give him a pretty narrow window of when this car does this, then he knows exactly where he needs to be to try to put his finger on that problem. He's not going to waste time in areas where the car doesn't do it anyway. So share that information. Last thing, if there's anything a shop needs to know about your car when you drop it off, please remember to tell them the tag is expired, Or don't roll the driver's window down. I get that one all the time. You know, if your driver's window won't roll back up on its own, please tell the shop not to roll it down when you drop it off. All right? So try not to get ripped off. Keep your eyes open for more videos. We're gonna make a few here. So good luck. Second opinion. Maybe look at reviews before you go to a shop. If your car is at a shop and they give you an estimate, tell them you need some time to think about it. Always think about it. Don't give them an answer up front. Call other places, get estimates on the same amount of work. Make sure it's jiving with what they're telling you. Maybe take a little while to look into some reviews concerning that company. You know, go on your search engine, whether it be Bing or Google, and Google them and look for reviews and see what people have to say about that company. Don't condemn the repair shop if you see a couple of bad ones, as long as you see some good ones, because you can't please everyone. And some people are really tough. You know, some people don't understand that the car broke and it's going to cost some money to fix it. Some people say, well, you know, I don't understand. It started yesterday, but it wouldn't start today. I just don't get it. And I say, well, what don't you get? The fuel pump went out. Between the time you started it yesterday and the time you tried to start it this morning, you had a malfunction. That part needs to be replaced. What is there to not understand? Here's another thing to keep in mind. I promise this is the last thing. If you take your car to a shop somewhere and you have something done like an oil change or a starter or some sort of service or some sort of repair, that does not necessarily mean that the next time something goes wrong with your car, it has anything to do with the last service that was done. Okay? Your starter can go out next week whether you have the oil change today or not. All right? So when you call that shop back, even if that's not where your head's at, don't start the conversation with, you changed my oil last week and now my car won't start, because the shop is going to take it the wrong way. If that's not what you mean, then try to be aware of that. If it is what you mean, then let me explain it to you from the other side. Mechanics call that being married to a vehicle. A lot of times you see a customer coming. If you can size them up and you realize that that's going to be the situation, you think, geez, I'm going to fix the window on this car. This guy's going to come back next week and say his tires are worn out, and they weren't worn out before I fixed his window. Yeah, that's what we call being married to the vehicle. And a lot of times the shop will throw a real big estimate at you just to get you to decline the repair and go out the door, because they don't want to be married to your car. So keep those things in mind. You know, it's a little more involved than you might think. And the better you can understand it, the better your chances of not getting ripped off. Good luck, Nasty NASCAR Nut. We'll talk to you later.